Welcome back, everybody, to the BKA Beloved podcast. I'm your host, BKA Beloved. On today's show, we got the definitive Cam Newton take. The Cowboys get absolutely bum rushed in Buffalo, and so much more fun things. But first, I got to give a quick shout out. It is going to seem random, but I promise it is not. I have to give a shout out to the truck drivers across these United States and overseas. Where is this coming from? Well, I got a couple comments and messages very recently on a recent episode that we released. It was from people who drive trucks and 16-wheelers thanking me for releasing episodes and asking me to make longer ones. First and foremost, thank you for what you do. I think truck drivers are the literal backbone of America. I was watching The Irishman, the Scorsese movie that's like 20 hours long, and Pacino's character, who was playing Jimmy Hoffa, said, and I quote, "If you got it, a truck driver brought it to you." And there are no truer words. Trucks literally drive everything in America. So trust me when I say thank you so much. Literally everything you see in this studio right now around me, all the art, the mics, the lights, everything's because of a truck driver. So thank you. To the make things longer point. Unfortunately, I am waiting until there is a strong demand for me to make longer episodes. I'm 2 months in to switching to doing a weekly podcast. That's about 40 minutes, 45, give or take a week. Doing 1-minute clips every day for a year to going to 40 minutes. I felt like that was a bit of a jump, and the numbers are currently bearing that out. We're getting back slowly, but slowly right now, they're slowly bearing that out. If it was up to me, I'd sit here in front of this mic 3 hours a day, every day, and just talk to y'all every single day of the year. But unfortunately, we're not there yet. But when we are, trust me, I will do it. Anyways, thank you for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. All right, so we got to get to the things we missed immediately after recording, and I swear all of these stories happened the moment I hit end. First of which being the Cam Newton story, because God forbid that he drops his podcast a day early magically. This is a very crappy way for me to find out that me and Cam Newton's podcast drops on the same day. But before I get to the actual Cam Newton comments, because I'm sure at this point you've heard so many different people's takes on it, but you haven't heard mine, and I'm better than all those people, so bear with me. That was said in jest, by the way. I have to go through my quick background and history of Cam Newton. Cam Newton was my Michael Vick. And if you look at the numbers, he was better than Michael Vick, but argument for another day. Michael Vick was arrested in 2007. I was 10 years old when he was arrested. So when he was running around the league doing his thing, winning MVP and on the cover of Madden, I was a wee tyke. So it didn't really hit me the way it did people a little bit older than me. I was a little too young. Even when I was watching the Vic 30 for 30, there was a lot of things that I was learning retroactively. What was it, 2 years ago when that 30 for 30 came out? I was a sophomore in college for Cam Newton's MVP year and a sophomore in high school for his Heisman year at Auburn. I didn't miss a game. I couldn't get enough. It was mesmerizing. You can do top 10 greatest best players list, whatever. You'll be hard-pressed for me to find 5 players that were more fun to watch than Cam Newton when he was at the height of his powers. It was absolutely magical. I am the self-proclaimed president of the Black Quarterback Fan Club, and it started with Cam Newton being at a PWI, predominantly white institution for y'all that haven't heard the acronym before. During the Cam Newton run and getting into stupid arguments with my teammates and hearing the same black quarterback tropes, Cam Newton can't throw. He's just a really big running back. Y'all know the ones. Meanwhile, he threw for 4,000 yards as a rookie, and his first game ever on the NFL field threw for 400 plus yards. And then the following year after Cam's MVP year was the Colin Kaepernick protest, and that just radicalized me completely. And I watched people cling on to the few flaws in their careers, like going to a Super Bowl and losing, watching them cape for quarterbacks who didn't accomplish half of what they have and try to convince me with my own 2 eyes that have watched all these players that they are better simply because they're not Cam and/or Colin. I talk about this every single week, how black quarterbacks are judged differently, how quickly their accomplishments are diminished. Just look at the last week of coverage of how a MVP, Heisman winner, national champion, and a guy that went to a Super Bowl was talked about like he's, I was going to say the name of a quarterback, but I'm trying to be respectful. No, I'm not. Like he's Nathan Peterman. Okay, so now for his actual comments. For y'all who somehow missed it, Cam Newton was on his podcast last week and called Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, and Dak Prescott game managers and not game changers. And for 3 out of the 4, I agree with him. This statement would have been valid for Dak Prescott every year but this one. With the exception of last year where he threw a shit ton of picks, Dak's whole career, he has been a game manager plus. They came out this year and Mike McCarthy's plan was we're going to limit the turnovers, run the ball, and we're going to make Dak manage the game. That might be a direct quote. They couldn't get the run game going to start the year. They still can't get it going now, as you saw during the Bills game. And before that Bills game, Dak Prescott was on an MVP-like run because he's playing his ass off and changing the game. And as far as the other game managers, they are in systems that show if you manage the game correctly, you can put up astronomical numbers. We're no longer in the Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, or even Alex Smith, which is one of the best versions of this example, era of the game manager because of these Shanahan McVay-esque systems. And you know how I know it's a system? The Titans game. The moment that Tyreek Hill left that game, Tua looked a little different now, didn't he? Brock Purdy. When Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams missed a couple games, they lost 3 straight. And y'all were talking about benching him for Sam Darnold. I was there. Matter of fact, I was one of the people defending him. And then with Jared Goff, up until this last Saturday, everyone was talking about how Jared Goff has the same flaws he's always had. So objectively, he's right about 3 of the 4 of those things. And I don't know why we're acting like game managers, the N-word of quarterback words or whatever. You know who we all agree is a game manager and might be the poster child? Look in the dictionary and it's a picture of this man's face. Kirk Cousins. Would you like to know how his career is going? I'm going to stat y'all down real quick. Bear with me. Kirk Cousins is 24th all-time in career passing yards. He is 5th among active players. He is 20th all-time in passing touchdowns, 4th among active players. Throwing 12 seasons over $141 million, most of which have been fully guaranteed. Probably going to see another 50 to 100 million this offseason. Not say being a game manager doesn't sound too damn bad, now does it? But more importantly, the way Cam views game changers and game managers shouldn't be shocking to any of us. Every former player that we hear talk about the game views it through the eyes of their play style and in a way that elevates themselves in their eyes. This isn't a Cam thing. This isn't just a football thing. Hell, this isn't even a sports thing. You know how many back in my day ass people exist in the world? And for Cam Newton, he's never been asked to manage a game his entire life. Every single team that Cam Newton has ever been on, probably since Pop Warner, the entire construction of the team has been, Cam got it. Most people can't name a single player on that Auburn team that won the national championship, except maybe Nick Fairley because he spent 5 years in the league. You damn sure can't name nobody at Blinn College when he won a JUCO championship. And when he went to the Super Bowl with the Panthers his MVP year, he only had 1,000-yard receiver, and that was Greg Olsen, his tight end. So as far as the way he views game changers, of course he views it that way because he's had to be his game changer his whole damn life. And if we're going to be critical of Cam one place, that's kind of why he's out the league right now. Because right now, athletically, because of all the game changing he had to do, accumulating hits like a star running back, he's not in a place to do that game changing anymore. And if you want to bring in a backup, their job is to manage the game. That's not what you call Cam Newton for. He has no experience doing that. Okay, now I can get to the critics. Miss Kimberly Martin, can we please come to the front? First off, big fan, a lot of respect. They made Kimberly Martin the face of the anti-Cam critique, specifically awful announcing on Twitter. Made her the face of it. That was the one that got the most engagement. Meanwhile, all the analysts on TV made either her same points or worse. And they were able to skate scot-free, including the 3 other panelists that were on Get Up with her, having the same discussion. But we already know the vibes when it comes with that. Whenever it's attack a black woman o'clock, y'all are never late. Ever, ever, ever. But I digress. If I could offer a quick word of advice, not that you need it, Miss Martin, but I just feel like I got to throw my 2 cents in there since everybody's throwing their opinion out there. As a woman covering a male-dominated sport, and dominated might even be an understatement. There's 3 female coaches, 4 female referees maybe, and there's never been a woman player in the NFL ever. I wouldn't recommend going the route of trying to discredit a former player. Just me personally, I just don't think that's the best route for you to take. Because of level of play is the qualifier that we're going on, you have 0 leg to stand on. Because not only you, no woman ever has ever played in the NFL. And that's partially why I've always thought the whole you never played so you can't talk about this discussion is stupid. Out of the many reasons I'll get to in a second, that's very high to the top of the list. So we're just going to straight up say no woman can talk about football ever because there's been no woman in the NFL. But since we're on the subject of the discrediting game, I'm going to do just a quick exercise for you guys, right? Because this all started because it was common trope. It wasn't just Kimberly Martin. Again, common trope that Cam Newton was not a good enough quarterback at this current moment to critique the 4 quarterbacks that he called game managers, even though none of those 4 are as accomplished as Cam Newton, by the way. But sure, for the sake of the exercise, I will accept this premise that Cam Newton does not meet the minimum requirements to have this discussion. If that is the case, then there's not a single quarterback analyst on TV that can have this discussion either, because none of them are as accomplished as Cam Newton except maybe Kurt Warner. Depends on how much you value the ring compared to the rest of their careers. Because if you ask me which of the 2 I would want for my quarterback, I'm going Cam Newton personally. And before you say Troy Aikman or the Mannings, they're not analysts, they're announcers. It's different. I could go name by name and start listing them off, but my man Channing Crowder from the Pivot Podcast already did that, and y'all know exactly who I'm talking about. Whoever you're picturing right now when I said this quarterback isn't qualified enough to have this conversation because they're not as good as Cam Newton, yes, them on TV, yes, him. I mean, hell, just a couple weeks ago when Tom Brady talked about how the league is watered down and the quality of football isn't as good, which he's been proven right every single game since, by the way, y'all try to tell him he don't know what the hell he's talking about. And if Tom Brady can't talk about football, then all of us shut the fuck up. We should disconnect every podcast mic, shut down all the channels, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, shut down YouTube, Twitter, shut it all down. If Tom Brady, the most accomplished football player ever, can't talk about football, none of us can. It's done. No more. So let's take it off Cam for a second. Let's just do straight up played football. Okay. What level? Pop Warner? High school? JV? Varsity? College? What level? D1? D2? D3? NAIA, JUCO, club. You made it to the NFL. Can you be a practice squad player? How many years is the requirement? 1, 2, 3, 4, 10? Do I have to make a Pro Bowl? Do I have to make an All-Pro? How many? Do I have to make the Hall of Fame? Do you see how dumb this gets? Do you see how we just keep moving the goalposts over and over and over again until none of this shit makes sense at the end of the day? So instead of attacking the person and trying to disqualify their opinion, how about we attack the point? And the truth is, most of you are not equipped to do so. Straight up. And this isn't just sports. This is why political discourse is the way it is. This is why social media is the way it is in general. Because most of you are not armed with the intelligence or the communication skills that will make you capable of combating these actual points and having intellectual discourse. So instead you resort to personal insults like a fucking 5-year-old. All right. Last point on Cam, because I'm sick of hearing this one too. I kept hearing that Cam isn't humble enough to be a backup quarterback. I will counter that by asking you, what star quarterback this century ended their career as a backup? Tom Brady didn't. Peyton Manning didn't. Ben Roethlisberger didn't. Drew Brees didn't. Phillip Rivers didn't. Shit, Eli Manning got the coach fired because they benched him. I can keep going, but you get my point. This is what happens when you keep just regurgitating bullshit narratives that you hear without ever having a single critical thought for yourself. You just hear because you already think Cam's cocky and he's so full of himself and he needs to be humble. You're just like, oh yeah, of course he isn't humble enough to be back up. Motherfucker, nobody is. Nobody goes from multiple All-Pros, Super Bowl, Pro Bowl MVP to, okay, I'll just hold a clipboard for this guy that isn't nearly as good as I was at my peak. No one's doing that. Nobody. Okay, I think that's it. Let's move to the next thing that we missed last week. Draymond Green. How fitting that he is also a part of this week's episode, because he is the genesis of this segment of this podcast. Because the first time that I felt the need to do this was because immediately after I stopped the recording, Draymond choked out Rudy Gobert. That was what? 3 weeks ago? Sure enough, the moment I stopped recording last week, Draymond hit Yusef Nurkic with the George St. Pierre spinning back elbow fist, which, I'm not gonna lie, maybe I'm just not that mature as a human. I laughed very hard. I laughed very hard before everyone got all Barbara Walters, Oprah somber about it. I laughed real hard. A dude got spin hit in the face. He's fine. He didn't get a concussion enough. He's fine. A man got punched in the face for no reason out of the complete blue by someone who we also know kicks people in the nuts. That's funny. I'm sorry. It's just funny. And then the discourse that followed afterwards, I thought was interesting because I'm watching some of you get so close to the point and just barely miss it. The NBA suspended Draymond indefinitely, which I think is the right and wrong decision. Right, because it clearly sends the message, all right, bro, we done with your shit. You go somewhere and get this fixed. We're not even going to put a number on this. Go get this fixed, right? That's the good part about it. The bad part about it is it does feel like a cop-out. It does. It feels like, all right, we can't come up with an actual number to put on the repeat offenses that you have. So just go figure it out. Go somewhere. And I understand the tropes of we don't want to paint Draymond as the angry black man and say that he needs help. And when Nurkic, who I didn't know had a black scent, but apparently he does, went out there and said this brother needs help, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I get it. I do. And you know me, I keeps my race card on me. I'm ready to slam that joint on the table like the big joker whenever it's necessary. However, nobody's painting Draymond like the angry black man but Draymond. And I know there's some people that's like, oh, well, he's not doing anything criminal. He's not getting in trouble off the court. You're completely missing the point. That's not what the fuck we're talking about right now. We are talking about a grown-ass man. Draymond Green is 33 years old, father of 2, married, that can't control himself at his job to not put his team in harmful positions, even though it already cost him a title. It probably cost him millions of dollars in fines, and it's the reason probably why he didn't get a bigger contract this past offseason. It's the fact that he knows the consequences of his actions over and over and over and over and over again, and he continues to do so. And at first, I was like, all right, maybe the Warriors are enabling it. The last time we talked about him choking out Rudy Gobert, I blamed the Warriors. I said, this is y'all fault for enabling it. The Warriors seemed disgusted. So clearly the enabling is over. But we'll keep an eye on this. I don't know what this seek counseling to help himself looks like. We'll see what that ends up being. We'll see. Thing we missed, number 3, Bill Belichick. Tom Curran report came out the morning that this podcast came out. Because of course it did. Thanks a lot for that, Tom. Saying that the decision to fire Bill Belichick was made after the Germany game, after watching Bailey Zappi fake spike the ball and throw an interception in a crowd of 3 people, after Bill Belichick benched Mac Jones to put Bailey Zappi in for the last drive of the game. Coincidentally, was also going into the same week where I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see the side of the people that want to see Belichick fired. Because even I was disgusted by that, right? Now, we've got some conflicting reports since, and I'll get to that in a second. But if it was anybody but Tom Curran, I wouldn't believe it. When it comes to Patriots news, Tom Curran's as good of a word, except if it came out of one of the Kraft's mouths. Like, Tom Curran word is as good as gold. I'm not going to lie to you. So when it came out, I said, man, it might be a wrap for Belichick. Now, the Ian Rappaport report came out saying that a decision has not been made. And if you remember, Ian Rappaport, he had the original report that Belichick got the extension that nobody knows what the year is, but it knows it goes through next year. So I have 2 theories on that. One, the same person that told him he got the extension, he went back to them and said, yo, what the fuck? You got me looking dumb out here when I say he got extended, and now Tom out there saying he's getting fired. Or Rappaport's out there with a little CYA insurance trying to make sure that on his own, he not out there looking dumb. So either or. But as far as the actual Belichick no longer being the head coach of my favorite team, I'm at stage 3 of grief right now. I'm at bargaining. There's 2 things that I just don't want to see. Number 1, for the longest time, the main thing I've been clinging to is I don't want to see him break the wins record on another team. I want to see him do that on a Patriots sideline. I'm an NFL history historian guy, so that it would just mean something to me to be like, that's my coach that I watched my entire life. I watched him break this record. I watched damn near every win he got. He broke it with us. Put that one in Canton. Beautiful. I've accepted that's not going to happen. I hope he does it soon. So whatever situation he ends up going to, I hope it's the one that's most conducive to him breaking the record as soon as possible, so he's not 80 on the sideline trying to break the record. And the second thing is, I don't want this to be a Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones situation where it ends so badly between the Krafts and Belichick to the point where they're not speaking and we can't put Belichick in the ring of honor and it's all awkward when we talk about the Patriots era. I don't want that. Jimmy Johnson is about to get inducted into the Cowboys Hall of Fame on the 30th of this month, December. It is 2023. Jimmy Johnson has not been the coach of the Cowboys in my lifetime. I'm turning 27 this month. That's what I'm saying. It's craziness how long that beef lasted. Belichick and Kraft don't got that much time to make amends, so I'm going to need them to fix that now before they got to go to their grave and all the Patriots Nation has to know, like, hey, they died hating each other. And that's just a black mark over this entire great run and the greatest run in the history of sports. I just don't want that. So however this ends, I want it to end with a scenario where just like Brady came down this year, got the fist pump the crowd. Yeah, one last let's go. Got hit. He's in the ring of honor and they're about to build him a statue, I think, next year, as they should. I want Belichick to get the same treatment. This era deserves that. even if it ends this year, which again, I don't think it should. It looks like that's how it's going to go. Hope that's it. All right, last thing that we missed is Jonathan Majors. I'll read directly from CNN. A New York jury on Monday found actor Jonathan Major guilty of assault and harassment of his former girlfriend during a domestic dispute. Major is a rising star who appeared in Marvel's franchise, and Creed 3 was convicted on Monday, 1 count of reckless assault in the third degree and a non-criminal charge of harassment as a violation. Now, I've been very hard on abuses of women, sexual assaulters, rapists, things of that nature, as every man should be. If you're abusing women, taking advantage of women, you're a piece of shit and you deserve everything that comes to you. But with this, strangely, I don't feel anger. I feel more so extreme disappointment. I was a fan of Jonathan Majors. Complete vulnerability here. I was a fan of Jonathan Majors. That doesn't make what he did right, by the way. I'm sitting there like, damn, yo, like, your star was on the rise. Like, you were about to go get it done. And of course, that's not the first thing on my mind when you hear about the potentially heinous things that he's done to this woman, and now it's been found guilty of. He's going to be sentenced sometime in February, but I don't know. I'm just kind of filled with more sadness and disappointment with anger on this one. And we'll follow up with the Jonathan Major stories come sentencing. It looks like the Marvel gig is done. Obviously, we won't be seeing him in Creed 4, but it's sad, man. It's really some sad, disappointing shit. Man, should have kept his hands to himself. Take a quick break and we'll get to the NFL questions. And we're back. Week 15 of the NFL questions. God damn, the season's going by fast. If you want to hear your questions submitted on the podcast, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, Monday morning, there will be a picture asking you to ask me anything. Submit your question. You can hear your question on the podcast just like this. Prime versus Ocho. Who wins? I love Nightcap too. I was watching it last night with Coach Prime back on there, and honestly, it just made me miss Deion as a on-screen commentator when he was working with NFL Network. I was sitting there like, damn, I just miss hearing you talk about the NFL. Obviously, I want him to stay at Colorado and continue to raise the young men and hopefully come back next year and be better. But damn, I was just like, man, I miss hearing you talk about NFL football. Okay, so here's the thing. I love Ocho. I really do. But I've seen Revis, Champ Bailey, and Sherman shut Ocho down. And the only receivers I've ever seen give prime Deion Sanders problems is Jerry Rice and Michael Irvin, I think once. So I think Prime got that one. However, so I'm not completely shitting on Ocho here. I will make the point that Chad Ochocinco Johnson deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and I think it is a great travesty that he is not. Let me put my YouTuber voice on. Here's why Chad Ochocinco deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. From my understanding, the Hall of Fame is supposed to tell the story of the NFL. Tell me, how do you tell the story of the NFL in the 2000s without Ochocinco? Are there 5 more receivers that you think of before you get to Ochocinco? I can argue there's not 2. You look at their career numbers, they stand for it. Pro Bowls stand for it. Everyone's talking about the distractions and the touchdown celebrations. I think you're missing a point. They're touchdown celebrations. We know he has so many of the touchdown celebrations because he scored a shit ton of touchdowns. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents on it. Put Ochocinco in the Hall of Fame, but he has no shot against Prime. Sorry to tell you. Thank you for the question. Do the Bills ride on the back of James Cook now? 221 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Wow. Couple things here. One, it is shocking that they even have the option to do that. All these past couple years, Josh Allen's had to be the superhero act because they had no running game this entire time. They've been waiting for James Cook to explode like this, and it looks like it's happening at the right time of the season. As far as will they ride him, pause, I don't think so. Just because when you have Josh Allen going into a game saying we're going to have one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league only throw the ball 15 times, that's a tougher sell. If it just so happens to work out that way, that's different. But for you to go into a game and that being the game plan, that's not going to fly. However, the fact that they have this James Cook counterpunch they can go to is great because they play in Buffalo. And the reason why they've struggled sometimes in Buffalo and on the road against other AFC teams in the playoffs is because it gets cold in January. And it's hard to do the Josh Allen superhero act when it's 10 degrees outside. If you remember the couple years back, the last time the Patriots beat the Bills outside of this year, it was the pouring rain sideways, like 50-mile-per-hour winds, and nobody could pass the ball at all, and the Patriots just ran the ball all game long. I think Mac Jones only had 3 pass attempts. They didn't have a running game to stand on that day. Today, they could win that game. And I think that's the biggest revelation from the Cowboys game. I'll talk more about it later, but that's the biggest revelation about it. Now they have a running game they can lean on. I like their chances for the playoffs a lot better. But no, they're not going to ride James Cook the entire time. You don't have Josh Allen and not use him. Come on. But thanks for the question. Do we still think that Dallas isn't going to just choke in the playoffs again, or are they actually serious? I still think Dallas is serious, man. I'm not the panic guy. That's not what I do here. Every single contender either has a loss where they got their ass completely kicked or an inexplainable loss that we look back on and we don't know how the hell it happened. The Eagles have both. Eagles got their ass kicked by the Niners and the Cowboys, and somehow they lost to the Jets. The Ravens lost to Gardner Minshew and the Colts in the rain. The Niners lost 3 straight and got their ass kicked by the Bengals. I can keep going, but you get the point. That's just the type of year it is this year in the NFL, bro. I'm sorry. Like, people are just taking L's left and right. No one thought the Cowboys were going to run the table for the rest of the season. But I'm not here to overreact. I'm not here to panic. The main concerning thing, I'll expand on this later for the power rankings, is that run game is bad. It's not just, it's not something they can lean on. No, it's bad. It's really bad. And they're going to have to be able to muster something on the ground if they're going to be taken seriously in the playoffs. But they get that somewhat fixed and get it serviceable, they'll be fine. Thanks for the question. Why does Russ get all the flack for losses? The O-line wasn't blocking for nothing, and the defense sucks. Couple reasons. One, he's a quarterback, and to whom much is given, much is requested. Quarterbacks always get too much of the blame and too much of the credit. The game is a game. Also, people just don't like Russ for a multitude of reasons, whether it's because you think he's corny, or you're a devout Future fan, or you think they traded too much for him, or whatever. A lot of people just don't rock with Russ. So if they have any excuse to just throw rocks at him, they will. But you are correct. That loss was not entirely on Russ. The Broncos defense did not come to ball that day. They've been making their living off of turnovers. And I know there's arguments back and forth in the football nerd community as to whether turnovers are based on luck or not, but they weren't able to create any against a Jared Goff-led offense who's been giving the ball away like free samples. So does that say more about Russ, or does that say more about the Broncos? Says more about the Broncos. Thanks for the question. All right, last question, then we'll get to the power rankings. Who would you least want on your team? Brandon Staley, Matt Canada, or Arthur Smith? Woo! So when I first got this question, I thought I was choosing who would I most want on my team. So, okay, this actually is a little harder, funny enough. Okay, who would I least want out of these three? So Brandon Staley is supposedly a defensive mastermind who had the 25th or worst ranked defense every year he was a Charger head coach. So you have one job and you suck at that job. So that's a demerit. Matt Canada is an offensive dunce. Let's call it what it is. Ran a dysfunctional offense in Pittsburgh for years, but I might be able to make an excuse for him in a second. We'll get there in a minute. Arthur Smith, my hatred for Arthur Smith has been aired on this podcast before. For y'all that missed it, it's not the fact that he doesn't use his weapons on offense correctly. That's one thing. It's the fact that he's so fucking arrogant about it and treats us like we're the dummies because we say, hey, maybe you should give your good players the ball so they can score. Crazy thought. Maybe you should give your good players the ball. But no, he's the all-knowing grand poobah of football, so he knows better than we do. All right, Arthur. But with Matt Canada, the Steelers' offense hasn't looked that much better since he's been gone. Granted, Kenny Pickett's been hurt, and in that first game, they got 400 yards, but they didn't score. They had like 16 points that game. So there's a chance that Matt Canada might not be as bad as we think. So whoop. Matt Canada is at the top of the shitty coach bowl. A number 2 spot. Look, as much as I hate Arthur Smith, he's not a bad coach. He's just hard-headed as fuck. And I can deal with hard-headed. Hard-headed make for a soft ass. And it don't make for a terrible record. Even though they just lost to literally the worst team in football. But still. Last place got to be Brandon Staley. You have one job. Be good at defense. And he couldn't do that. You had one fucking job. All right. Thanks for the question. Gonna take a quick break. And then we're off to the power rankings. Breaking news, timeout. We'll get to the power rankings in 1 second. Apparently, Rashard Mendenhall started a race war in between the break and my recording. I don't know how it started. I don't know where the context came from, but for some reason, he tweeted out, instead of a Pro Bowl, we're going to have the all black versus all white game. Before I even continue, if you're here for deep and cutting edge and introspective racial relation conversations, you clicked the wrong link because that is not what's about to happen here. I'm here for the funnies. I got nothing but jokes for you. I got some rules and regulations as to how we're going to make this game work. Number 1, we got to sort out the Africans. Everyone that got a little bit of black blood in their body, we got to figure out how we're going to divide this up. Don't worry, I got answers. Now, my initial reaction was, hey, we going to bring back the one drop rule since that's how y'all was doing it back in the day. But I said, you know what? It's 2023. Let's be progressive. So obviously, the number one prospect in the African draft is Patrick Mahomes. So seeing as he's named after his black ass daddy, who looks like he'll change your carburetor, and his middle name is Lavon, I think we get him in the first half on the all black team, and the whites can have him in the second half. That sounds fair to me. And as far as our other biracial quarterback, Mr. Here We Go himself, Dakota Prescott, y'all can have him first half and we'll switch it up. Doesn't really matter. Second half, we'll be starting Lamar Jackson anyways. Everyone else, we'll do a Chappelle Show style racial draft and we'll figure it out from there. Next, we had the Polynesians. I heard Aaron Rodgers said they want the Polynesians in the draft. Now, Aaron, buddy, I think we know what side Polynesians go on. I mean, come on now. For those of you that aren't watching the video, I just showed a picture of two in cornrows. If you can put on cornrows and not look ridiculous, you're on the black side. That's just how it goes. You're on the black side. I don't make the rules. Actually, I do, but that's not the point. Next, I heard Will Compton say that whether or not you say the N-word is a parameter as to what side you're on. Mr. Compton, my response is, in what context? Because depending on the context, I'm pretty confident we get both Bosa brothers, Travis Kelce, and Max Crosby. So clarify, y'all discuss that amongst yourselves, and we'll see where we land on that. Now, the whites are thin at corner. There hasn't been a white corner in the league since 9/11. I heard they were calling up Cooper DeJean, and if y'all are calling up college prospects, just know that Marvin Harrison Jr. will be on the flight, sharing the armrest with him, right next to him, ready to go. Now, all black squad, I know we don't have the best running back in the league. I know we don't have CMC. He's on their side, but don't worry. I checked our roster and we have, hold on 1 second, literally everybody else. We had concerns that we don't have a punter. Marquise King looks like he's nice and retired, but don't you worry. We won't need one. No need for a punter on this team. Don't worry. Other concern was kicker. Ain't no black kickers in the league, but I'm pretty sure there's an African or two that used to play soccer. We can pick one up. That's fine. I'm pretty sure Ndamukong Suh ain't retired yet. Let's get him. Bring him up. Matter of fact, what's my man name from the Texans? The running back, Agumba Wale. Yep, we got him. He's our kicker. Oh boy, and the coaching staff. The coaching staff. We got Mike Tomlin at the head coach. We got two defense coordinators with Brian Flores and D'Amico Ryans. And for our offense coordinator, we got Eric Bieniemy and 1/4 of Mike McDaniel. Y'all wanted to flaunt him as a diversity hire when he got the job with the Dolphins. Okay, fine. He's with us now. Take your Rooney Rule and shove it. He's with us. That's about it for me, man. I say we actually make this happen. It's better than watching them play flag football and do all these weird drills at the Pro Bowl. Let's go. Rashard Mendenhall accidentally stumbled on genius. Okay, now we'll actually do the power rankings. All right, so I'm happy we were able to have a little fun before the power rankings, because it actually brings me to a point I wanted to make before I started with this list. Guys, I think we're forgetting what makes football fun. What makes football fun is that there isn't one way to do this. The greatest show on turf, Rams, and the 2000 Ravens won the Super Bowl in back-to-back years, and they are very literally polar opposites of each other. That is why football is awesome. You can't go all the way analytics. That gets you fired like Brandon Staley. You can't go stick in the mud, only eye test coach stuck in your ways. That gets you fired like literally insert any coach from the last decade that got fired here. It's about balance. It's so many different ways to do this. I'm not going to use the skin of cat analogy because that's nasty, but you know what I mean. And the fact that we're all attracted to different things. Some people love running quarterbacks. Some people don't. Some people like possession receivers. Some people like receivers like Tyreek Hill that run their ass off. Some people like a big bruiser running back. Some people like a Darren Sproles as shifty guys. That's what makes this fun. The fact that everyone can like different things. You can tune into a football game and tune into whatever you want and find what you want. With that said, let's get into this power ranking list because my word is law. All right, first two out. First up, we got the Indianapolis Colts, who got a very good win against the Pittsburgh Steelers in a last drive where they bullied the Steelers in a turn of events I did not see coming. The last drive, they went like 13 or 14 straight run plays to close out that game, and that was nuts. Nothing pissed Steelers fans off more than watching them get bullied at the end of the game. Losing is one thing. Getting bullied is a whole nother thing. And now they're in a three-way tie for the division lead with the Jaguars and Texans. More on that later. Next first team out, the Los Angeles Rams. I really wanted to put them in the top 10, but I couldn't justify it. I couldn't. Outside of whoever loses the NFC East, they're my favorite wildcard team in the NFC right now. I'm banking on Sean McVay being one of the 3 to 5 best coaches in the league. Matt Stafford looks like Matt Stafford again. If you really go back and watch the film from that Ravens game, it'll make your jaw drop. He was throwing dime after dime that game. I really like what I'm seeing from the Rams so far. It looks like they're starting to click and get it together at the right time. They have a very young roster, and it looks like they're starting to piece it together now. So they're going to be fun to watch for the rest of the season. All right, actual list. Future Kev that is editing this. Give me my graphic. Thank you, sir. Number 10, I got the Buffalo Bills. They are playing like one of the 3 best teams in football right now. So why are they at 10? Thanks for asking. They're still outside of the playoff picture. They're the 9 seed right now. And I can't justify putting you in the top 5 or 3 if the season ended today and you're not in the playoffs. And they would need a lot to happen that's not in their control for them to make it. They could win every game for the rest of the season and still not make it. However, if things do go their way, there's an outside chance they could end up with the 1 seed. Crazy enough. A team that fired their offense coordinator not too long ago could end up with the 1 seed in the AFC. Crazy. Number 9, we got the Jaguars, and oh boy, how the mighty have fallen. 3-game losing streak. I went back and watched the film. They left 9 to 21 points on the field that night. And the 1 touchdown they did get wasn't because they put a magical drive together. It was because the Ravens had a blown coverage and your man was butt naked wide open and caught the ball. Defensive side of the ball, they got like a 50% pressure rate or some crazy shit. But Lamar. You're not it. Lamar. You can get to him. Good luck getting him down, but you can get to him. It's not looking great for the Jaguars right now, man. Number 8, I got the Kansas City Chiefs. I know that sounds low, and they dropped after winning a game. However, if you wanted to convince somebody like me that this team's going to turn it around and make a Super Bowl run, you're supposed to be the supposed to be tanking Patriots team by way more than 10 points. And you know what the definition of insanity is? Watching Kadarius Toney make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake and going out there in the press conferences and in your podcast and saying, yeah, you know, he's our brother. We're going to stand behind him and he's going to play a key part of his team. We're going to keep feeding him and me. And expecting a different result and hoping he can get together. My brothers in Christ, it is week 16. It is not going to happen. But the problem is, we don't know what the alternatives are. Sky Moore just got hurt, so he might miss the next game. Rashee Rice is still a rookie. He's not ready to be a featured receiver. And every team in the league knows to double Travis Kelce at this point because God knows what else they're going to be able to do at receiver. I felt Mahomes' little rant on the bench in my soul. Anyone who's ever had to do a group project by themselves felt that in their soul. At number 7, we got the Cleveland Browns, who coincidentally still have the same record as the Chiefs. Now, Joe Flacco giving the ball up that many times, not sustainable. He's going to have to get that together. I know they're making headlines about him. Oh, Flacco's back. Keep the ball, Joe. Stop turning the ball over. However, the defense is still as good as ever. Joe Flacco is playing good enough to keep the defense motivated, and that's really all that matters. Justin Fields had to be a literal superhero for the Bears to move the ball at all. So that's a win in of itself. Shout out to the Browns defense. At number 6, I got the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles' losses are as follows. Zach Wilson at home. The Niners ass kicking at home. The Cowboys ass kicking in Dallas. And now losing to Drew Lock in Seattle versus the Seattle defense that was missing its 3 best DBs not named Jordan Love or Julian Love, whatever my man name is. I still have faith that they're going to get it together. I trust the talent. I trust Sirianni. But, man, it's getting bad in Philly, man. Like, the fans are getting restless. However, the rest of their schedule includes Linguini Sanity Tommy DeVito and their old defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, and the Arizona Cardinals. They can still finish the season 13-3. After all this, they can end up 13-3 and still win the division and end up with the 2 seed. So they'll be fine. At number 5, we got the Dallas Cowboys. And the most concerning part of that Cowboys loss is the run game was abysmal. They got rid of Zeke in the offseason. We know that was a cap casualty that had nothing to do with his actual play. They just weren't trying to pay him all that money in the offseason. Understand that. They expected Tony Pollard to be the feature back. Did not happen. They tried early in the season. It turned to Dak having his superstar run for the season. I didn't know that was out of necessity. The Buffalo Bills are only the 17th ranked run defense. They're very literally middle of the pack. And the Cowboys went out there and rushed for 89 yards. Granted, some of that is because they fell behind so early that they had to throw for the rest of the game. But still, for a playoff run that looks like it's going to be mostly on the road if they don't win that division, man, they're going to have to figure out some type of run game to supplement this. as good as Dak's playing, if the game plan is Dak Prescott's going to go throw the ball 45, 50 times and we're going to win this game, they're going to go home early and Mike McCarthy's going to be looking for a new job in the fall. Number 4, I got the Detroit Lions. Now, I think I've shitted on the Lions every single one of these lists I pointed out. However, I'm here to give them some credit, specifically GM Brad Holmes, who's also the executive vice president and is also a brother. I'm old enough to remember when they said the Lions had the worst draft class possibly ever and definitely in this year. I'm going to read you what their first 4 picks were. Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, and Brian Branch. It is one thing to get 4 regular starters in one draft, to contribute at all in their career. It is another thing to grab 3 studs and a starter as rookies. And we were critiquing their offensive line. Silly me. As the guy that loves talking about O-line, I somehow kept forgetting that Frank Ragnow, their center, wasn't playing. Centers are very important, by the way. They make all the line calls and the blitzes and make sure everyone gets set up. Frank Ragnow's back. Magically, they can run the football again. Funny how that works. Number 3, we got the Miami Dolphins. Now, usually we do the who have they beaten? Oh, they beat another nobody. But we're not doing that this week. No Tyreek Hill, no problem. 30 points. Against a good Jets defense. They broke their will. And speaking of breaking will, they also broke Zach Wilson. Knocked him out the game for, they said, at least 5 to 6 different injuries that Zach Wilson may or may not have had as to why he wasn't in the game. Y'all have fun figuring out which one is which. But the Dolphins are going to have a chance to prove it for the rest of the schedule. Their last 3 games are the Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills in that order. So it's either going to end with them getting the 1 seed or they're going to end up being a wild card team. And we're going to be able to look at them and say, see, told you so. They can't beat a good team. And now look at them. Number 2, we got the Baltimore Ravens. And Chris Collinsworth said my Lamar Jackson's thoughts almost perfectly. He said, it's hard to make Lamar's MVP case based on statistics. But if you watch the game, you can't argue there's a more valuable player. There's so many Ravens plays that should have been blown dead. Absolutely nothing happened. It's all covered up. The pass game wasn't working at all against the Jaguars. Oh, but Lamar. Everyone's strapped up and covered. The blitz is in his face. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to avoid this guy, and I'm going to run for 98 yards today because I can. That's the best part about watching Lamar Jackson play football. I affectionately call it because I can football, because that's what he does. Almost every play you watch Lamar Jackson make, it's because I can. The defense went out there, and granted, the Jaguars left a lot of points on the table, but their game plan was, look, the Ravens lead the league in sacks, so we're going to throw this ball as quick as we possibly can. And the moment they fell behind and couldn't do that anymore, the Ravens got a strip sack and got the ball back because they were able to play defense the way they regularly play again. That's not a coincidence. And now we are less than a week away from the game we've all been waiting for, the Ravens versus team number 1, the San Francisco 49ers. Everyone is healthy. Everyone's ready to go. We're all going to abandon our families on Christmas to watch this game. I can't wait. There's nothing new I can say about the 49ers, so there's really no point in me even doing this part about them, but still, oh my God, I can't wait. Jesus Christ. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this week's edition of the Cab BKA Beloved Show. Be sure to rate, subscribe, like, share, but do all the things at BKA Beloved on all platforms. Thank you. We will talk to y'all next week.